America sent Ukraine more than 100 self-driving cargo robots, and 9 months later, Ukrainian troops have given them the highest compliment possible: send more. Then came the second half of the verdict: make them cheap enough to lose. That sentence tells us more about the future of ground warfare than every glossy autonomy presentation delivered in Washington over the past decade. These machines we're talking about today have run more than 1,000 missions, traveled over 2,500 miles, hauled 777,000 pounds of cargo, and completed 88 casualty evacuations. The feature that defines them is autonomous driving. Now, Ukrainian troops mostly drive them by remote control, and that is where the real story starts. Hey friends, Wes here. I am a defense journalist, an Army and an Air Force veteran, and a former infantryman or high-velocity projectile interceptor who spent enough time carrying heavy objects for the United States government to support any machine willing to take a turn. I know the pain firsthand. I've twisted my knee in the swamps of Louisiana while carrying way too much weight on my back and had to be medevaced out. The pain is real. So today we're talking about Forterra's Lancer, a robotic cargo vehicle built on a Polaris all-terrain platform and sent into one of the most hostile electronic and tactical environments on Earth. The Lancer has worked. Ukrainian troops want more of them. By the way, I know Forterra is watching this video. If you want to send me one of these robots to test drive, I'll make a video about it. Assuming my HOA lets me park it in the driveway.
Confidence is high. I repeat, confidence is high.
The Forterra Lancer's success also exposes a brutal procurement problem. A battlefield robot can be extremely useful and still be too expensive to employ the way the battlefield demands. The Ukrainian front has turned ordinary roads into observed fire lanes. A truck near the line can be spotted by a reconnaissance drone, passed into a firing chain, and attacked by an FPV drone, artillery, mortars, or some unpleasant combination of all the above. A supply run that once counted as routine logistics now advertises a vehicle, a crew, and a location of the unit waiting for the cargo. The road doesn't have to be physically blocked, it only has to be watched. That creates a vicious last-mile problem. Ammunition, water, batteries, food, medical supplies, and replacement parts still have to reach forward positions. Wounded troops still have to come back. In Ukraine, we've seen the death of the golden hour, the time in which if you reach an injured soldier, in that first hour, their chances of survival go way up. Well, the days are gone where you can fly a Black Hawk Medevac or Casevac into an area to pick up a wounded soldier. FPV drones would eat that Black Hawk alive. Human drivers can also do it, although every trip risks adding more casualties to a mission that may already involve a casualty. So Ukraine's answer has been to move as much of that risk as possible onto machines. And the most revealing part of this deployment is the feature Ukrainian crews often avoid. To understand that choice, we need to look at why they still love the machine. The Lancer is a larger American entry into that mission. Ukraine already builds many of its own uncrewed ground vehicles, usually battery-powered machines that carry around 250 kilograms. So the Lancer carries roughly 750 kilograms, or about 1,650 pounds. That's 3 times the load, close to what you'd expect from a small pickup truck rather than a robotic wheelbarrow. Its gasoline engine provides useful endurance and allows crews to refuel it quickly. Battery vehicles can be quieter, yes, harder to notice, sure, but the battery weight, the charging time, and the range limits how much they can move. The Lancer carries more and stays out longer. It also makes noise, produces a little bit of heat, and needs fuel, so there's no free lunch in military engineering. There's barely an edible lunch. But Forterra says more than 100 Lancers have operated in Ukrainian conflict zones over the past 9 months. The company believes this may be the largest combat deployment of autonomous ground vehicles by any American defense technology firm. The raw numbers are strong: over 1,100 missions, more than 750,000 pounds carried, and 88 casualty evacuations. A Ukrainian soldier who has worked with the vehicles called the Lancer the most important logistics ground robot in Ukraine. His review was slightly less restrained than the normal Pentagon acquisition memo. His quote, "It's fantastic, and we are dying to get more." End quote. That sounds like an uncomplicated victory. Definitely a quote Forterra should put on their website. So one battlefield detail turns it into a warning for the entire American autonomy industry. The Ukrainians often chose remote control over autonomous driving. Self-driving software works best when the rules remain reasonably stable. A civilian autonomous vehicle has lane markings, traffic laws, mapped roads, and other drivers who are generally trying not to ram it with an explosive quadcopter. The Ukrainian battlefield offers mud, mines, shell craters, electronic warfare, collapsed roads, improvised obstacles, and an enemy that changes tactics after watching what worked yesterday. So today's Autonomy can identify terrain, avoid obstacles, follow a route, and make local driving decisions. It doesn't yet think like an experienced Ukrainian operator who notices suspicious soil, a new drone overhead, or a tree line that suddenly feels wrong. So the enemy gets a vote. Worse, the enemy studies the software's habits. Some Lancers have already been lost. Deep mud has trapped vehicles long enough for Russian forces to locate and attack them. That's a normal battlefield loss, but it still hurts because the machines are valuable, and that value changes how soldiers use them. Commanders become more cautious. Operators intervene early. Nobody wants to watch an expensive robot make one bad decision and park itself in front of a Russian drone team. You don't buy an unmanned Mule so everyone can surround it like a Fabergé egg with off-road tires. So Forterra modified the Lancer for Ukrainian conditions with Starlink connectivity among the most important changes. The vehicle initially felt shaped around high-end US Army requirements. It became far more useful when engineers listened to the people sending it down the dangerous roads and changed the system around the actual mission. Forterra now wants to combine its self-driving software with newer generative AI so the vehicle can react more intelligently to what it sees. That is very likely to work. The company still has to gather enough combat experience to teach the system what danger looks like. So combat autonomy has to learn, it has to update, and it has to survive interference without becoming dependent on a perfect connection to a server somewhere. I think the Autonomy challenge is fascinating and one of the biggest tech stories of the next decade. But I think the deeper lesson here begins with the mission the machine removes from a human. 88 casualty evacuations matter more to me than any autonomy percentage. Ukraine's drone-saturated front has badly damaged the old promise of the military medical golden hour. That concept assumes a wounded soldier can reach advanced care within roughly an hour, which dramatically increases their chances of survival. Well, on parts of the Ukrainian front, evacuation may take many hours because ambulances and armored vehicles can't safely approach under constant observation. Medics sometimes wait for darkness, weather, jamming, or a temporary drop in Russian drone activity. A ground robot can travel into an exposed position without placing another driver and medic inside the target. It can bring a wounded soldier back through a route where a crewed vehicle would advertise 2 or 3 additional lives to every Russian drone operator in range. The ride may be slow and miserable, but Casualty at least has a route out that doesn't require another person to sit behind a windshield and hope the sky remains empty. The same logic applies to cargo. I spent the biggest chunk of my Army career in infantry units, and every tactical plan eventually becomes a weight problem. Ammunition has weight, water has weight, batteries have weight, medical supplies. A soldier who carries more of those items carries less of something else, usually comfort, speed, or functioning cartilage. The Lancer's 750 kilogram capacity means one machine can move the sort of load that would otherwise require a small vehicle or a miserable procession of human pack animals. It can make repeated short trips through the most dangerous portion of the supply route. Across 1,100 missions, those 2,500 miles are not cross-country road trips. They are short movements inside the part of the map where being seen can get you attacked. So the robot doesn't need science fiction independence. It needs to keep people off watched roads and keep forward units supplied. In that sense, Forterra's Lancer is a huge success. Finally, we arrive at the Ukrainian demand that should be printed across every entrance to every Pentagon robotics office. Make it cheaper. Western procurement has spent decades rewarding exquisite performance. Ukraine is fighting an attritional war where machinery gets jammed, mined, shelled, struck, captured, and destroyed. Attrition belongs in the requirements document from the first day. A system can be reliable, it can be useful, and beloved by the Ukrainian troops. Its price can still make it tactically fragile. If losing one robot causes a crisis call, a recovery mission, and several adults in business casual clothing to stop breathing, the unit will protect the robot instead of spending it to protect soldiers. So the target price must let commanders send the vehicle into danger without treating every mission like they're lending out the Liberty Bell. That means simpler construction, replaceable sensors, common parts, field repair, local maintenance, and production volume. Some vehicles will be cannibalized to keep others moving. The communications must degrade gracefully when Starlink, radio links, or satellite navigation becomes unreliable. A useful battlefield robot should stop, backtrack, follow a preset route, or wait for control. It should not wander into Russian lines like a Roomba with a security clearance. And this is where the Lancer may matter far beyond Ukraine. The Pentagon is pouring money into drones and autonomous vehicles because the next war is going to punish concentrated logistics even harder. Supply routes, ports, airfields, trucks, and ships will sit under persistent surveillance and long-range fires in almost any fight against an advanced military. Human logistics crews will remain essential. Every machine that can take the most exposed leg of the journey reduces the number of people placed inside the firing chain. American companies are racing to build robotic trucks, cargo carriers, scouts, and convoy vehicles. Ukraine is giving them the test that no range in Maryland can reproduce. Mud and jamming are only part of it. The real test comes from an enemy that watches, learns, and tries to destroy the product while the engineers are still updating it. Forterra appears to have passed an important first exam. More than 100 vehicles have performed real missions, moved serious weight, and brought wounded people back home. Ukrainian troops, who started skeptical, now want more. Their final instruction is the one Washington has historically struggled to hear. Useful machines must arrive in numbers. Numbers require a price that can survive attrition. Autonomy must work when communications fail, terrain lies, and the enemy behaves irrationally on purpose. The machine also has to be simple enough that a mechanic near the front can repair it without flying in a contractor, a software team, and a ceremonial delegation from Northern Virginia. The future of ground robotics will probably be a family of unmanned mules, quiet battery carriers, gasoline-powered heavy haulers, and machines that drive themselves through safer areas before handing control to a human near the line. Many will have short careers. That's acceptable when the machine absorbs the risk and the soldier comes home. Ukraine's verdict on the Lancer is unusually clear. The hardware works, the mission is urgent, full autonomy still has a little ways to go, and cost now determines whether a useful machine becomes a battlefield fleet or an expensive curiosity. Military autonomy earns its value when the machine accepts risks that a human no longer has to. Ukraine wants more Lancers because the vehicles have already completed 88 casualty evacuations. Ukraine wants them cheaper because the 53rd machine may disappear into the mud, and that 54th still has to be ready tomorrow. That is it for today, my friends. If this kind of military technology breakdown is useful to you, 3 quick things. Join the channel membership for about £3 a month. It helps support the work, keeps these lights on back here, which burn electricity. Hit subscribe also so YouTube stops treating us like two strangers making awkward eye contact at a Home Depot. And the QR code on the screen takes you to my Substack, where you'll find the deeper reporting and analysis. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.